So this is the last video where we're going to incorporate an input type of file. So if you haven't used this before, this would be really nice for you to learn. And we're essentially going to reuse our handle file upload function and allow us to upload images or files in multiple ways. The first way, of course, will be dragging and dropping an image. The second way, we'll go up to the top and we're then going to add an input type file. So if we go ahead and say input type equals file, give it a class of files and save it out, we'll see something like this where we have choose file and no file chosen. So what this input file does is gives us no file chosen. When we select a file, this will actually be replaced, but we have this button where we can click and it says choose file, which we can then navigate around our operating system. I can of course select a file. This then gives us the image name. I haven't had to add any behavior for this. Now we can only select one file. If I try and copy both of these, you can see I can only select one, and I'm actually pressing shift to try and grab both of these files, but I can only accept one. So if we choose the image, what I want to do as soon as we've selected an image is then call the exact same function to then take those files and then pass them off to be uploaded as well. Now the first thing that I want to add is this multiple attribute. Now if you just simply add it, we can now go ahead and select multiple images. You can see that this gives us 2 files. So this is really nice, and the API is actually really simple. We can also see that we have this all files. Now, I don't know about you, but we've actually restricted the types of files. We have PNG, JPEG, and SVG. So what we can do is add another attribute. I like to do this just before this multiple, so I like to keep multiple on the end just for readability purposes. And we can add an accept attribute with a value. So we could use an asterisk, which is essentially all, but we want to supply a type. So we could say image / and then JPEG. So when we save this out, we can then see that down here we have customized files, JPEG, and so forth. So this allows us to then select these. If we then change this over to perhaps a PNG, we don't actually have these available in the downloads folder. You can see this restricting what kind of files we're allowed to upload. Of course, we can override this if we wanted to, but this provides us a nice default, and we're then handling it with JavaScript. So because we want to kind of select just images, I'm going to keep this as a bit of a wildcard selector. So I'm going to say anything that starts with an image, doesn't matter what, we're going to leave it as is. So this will then allow us to select JPEGs and PNGs, and you can see here that it allows us to select all kind of image files. So this is nice, and it just enhances the user's experience and only shows them in the file system documents or files that they can actually upload rather than allowing them to access their entire operating system. So the next step is how do we get the files after we've selected them and pass them off? So when I go like this and then select the files, we can press open. You can see it has 2 files, but nothing actually happens. So because we have a class of files, you can call this whatever you like. Underneath our drop zone, I'm going to rename this to files. So this is going to give us a reference to our input, and underneath our drop zone event listener, I'm going to then add an event listener for our files. Now this is just simply going to be a change listener. We can then supply an arrow function with an event. And first off, what I want to do is console log our event out. Now to prevent any errors, we can also log out our files. So let's go ahead and select our images. You can see that we now have the files DOM node, but we most importantly have this event object. Now all event objects ship with a nice target. So let's have a look. We have target, which is an input.files. It accepts images, any kind of image. But as we scroll down, we will see the all familiar files, which is coincidentally a file list. So you can see what's happening here. We're reusing those same APIs that we've already learned in this chapter, and they are accessible elsewhere. We can drag and drop them and access this file list. So that means that all of the rest of our code is going to be exactly the same. So all we need to do is call handle file upload and then simply pass in the event target files. So inside the body of the function, we can say const files, much like we've done above, essentially. We can say equals event.target, and then nice and symmetrical, we can call handle the files upload. We can then, for example, drag an image in, let go, and you can see that that's been uploaded. We can then click it, and you can see this particular image. Or we can optionally go to choose files, select some images, open them, and you can see now that the change event has occurred, we're then just grabbing from the event target and passing it off to the same function. And I've done this deliberately because all the functionality that we've written so far in the file upload function is just going to kick off with our file list. So regardless of whether it's come from the drag and drop or it's come from the file selector, both of these are file lists, so we can handle them in the exact same way. And we can, of course, go and click on these particular URLs, and they come back exactly how we'd expect. So that's it for this lesson. This gives us a nice capability. If, for example, the user's browser perhaps doesn't support drag and drop, or we're even on a mobile device perhaps, we can't drag things on a mobile device. So it might be that for that particular device, we might want to hide our drag to upload and just stick with this method where we can then go and select a particular image. So that's it for this lesson. I hope you really enjoyed this. This is by far my favorite piece of HTML5 is this drag and drop and all these different file and form APIs that we can bring together and build something really cool with.